Please welcome GM Industrial Manufacturing Industry Business Unit, AWS, Grant Bodley.
Good morning and welcome to our industrial session titled Smart Manufacturing and Supply Chain in the Cloud. I'm Grant Bodley, General Manager of the Industrial Manufacturing Industry Business Unit globally, and we have an action-packed agenda for you today. So I'm going to start off by sharing our vision and strategy for AWS Industrial Manufacturing, and then Tony Hemmelgarn, CEO of Siemens Digital Industries Software, will talk to how we are working together to enable manufacturers to digitally transform their operations in the cloud. And then Kathy Varma, Head of Solutions, Strategy and Go-to-Market for Industrials, will chair a panel discussion of executives from Airbus, Carrier, and Siemens. And to get started, I'd like to get you to take a moment and visualize the factory of the future. If you can just roll the video. So I'd like you to picture a factory that meets supply chain disruptions head on with flexibility and agility. A factory that sees productivity gains despite workforce shortages. And a factory that makes achieving environmental and economic sustainability possible. A factory that sees beyond the four walls, that leverages a single view of data to enable unprecedented levels of collaboration and interoperation across that value chain. Does that seem attainable? Does that seem out of reach to you? Through digital transformation, that factory and far more flexible and agile supply chains are actually attainable by manufacturers today. But there are many issues that are holding these manufacturers back today, including 20-year-old custom-coded legacy systems, and with a lot of the tribal knowledge leaving the shop floor with the workforce shortages we're seeing. Many manufacturers are having a tough time getting any value out of their data due to siloed and disconnected data sources, and generally an inability to leverage data for high-value use cases such as predictive maintenance or product reliability, et cetera. So just in general, I think most manufacturers today are really stuck where they have limited ability to respond to these unprecedented shifts in demand and supply in their supply chains, and we'd like to make that easier for them. So how are we making it easier for the manufacturers of today to get that flexibility and agility that they desperately need right now? It's through the topic of this week. It's through reinvention. At AWS, we are reinventing ourselves by creating purpose-built industrial services like AWS IoT TwinMaker, Vision, Monitron, that are being leveraged by AWS and our partner solutions to accelerate their solution development, enabling them to get their software solutions to market faster, and also to significantly lower their cost to the manufacturing community. And we are bringing together the most powerful industry solution portfolio across the life cycle of a product, from engineering and design, through smart manufacturing, through supply chain. We are bringing together the best and most trusted brands in this industry to offer solutions as a service to the average manufacturer so that they can consume that and get the flexibility and agility that they need today. For example, Siemens Teamcenter X solution portfolio for product lifecycle management is available on the AWS Marketplace today. And we have solutions to rapidly spin up instances for high-performance compute, for engineering workloads, for virtual and-on solutions to keep production lines running, and many, many more. So I'd like to encourage all of you to attend the many, many sessions that we have this week on manufacturing in general to learn more about that. Now, at the foundation of our solution portfolio, we have an open data architecture to deliver what we are calling the industrial data fabric, which enables OT applications to consume a single view of data across the life cycle of a product. So at AWS, we are bringing together what once were siloed and disconnected data sources into a single environment. And this is crucial to be able to improve business performance by being able to orchestrate new workflows or new ways of working, infusing them with intelligence, leveraging a single view of data with AI and ML to enable new breakthrough capabilities. For example, more autonomous supply chains by automating decision-making, enabling you to address volatility at speed. How about helping engineers get that single view of data across the life cycle of a product so that they can actually improve the design of the product based on how it's performing in the real world? And through that single view of data, it's absolutely critical to be able to do things like improve productivity, quality, machine availability, and get to new levels of OE, operational equipment effectiveness. So in a nutshell, our strategy is to enable manufacturers to improve business performance in their operations. And we are doing that with a select few strategic partners. And these partners include industry leaders like Siemens, General Electric, Hitachi, and others. And a good example is many of these industry leaders are leveraging the services capabilities that are mentioned across the life cycle of a product, including the IoT Twin Maker service. So companies like Siemens are leveraging that because it enables them to bring together a comprehensive view of real-world objects like machines on the shop floor, production lines, factories, to be able to bring together real-time data so that they can do things like improve overall equipment effectiveness and factory output. So we are working together with many of the industry leaders. Sorry, can we just go back a bit? We are working with many of the industry leaders in the space across all of the subsegments of manufacturing, from automotive, industrial, energy, aerospace, and just to name a few. SKF, one of the world leaders in ball bearing manufacturing, wanted to provide some additional capability to their customers, and we are working with them to reinvent machine reliability and predictive maintenance. And this is enabled through a very simple, affordable, automated monitoring system that allows them to do that. So another great example is Carrier, which we'll hear from today, as well as Airbus, but really working with both Carrier and Airbus to make improvements in the amount of spoilage in the cold chain at Carrier, and also help Airbus reinvent their supply chain on the cloud. And at this point, I'd like to highlight our collaboration with Siemens. Siemens is a worldwide leader in automation and industrial software. And Siemens just recently announced record earnings for 2022, which is remarkable when you consider that they have a 175-year history. And if you think of the state of the economy right now, this is pretty amazing. And I'd like to introduce Tony Hemmelgarn, CEO of Siemens Digital Industry Software, to talk to how we are working together to enable manufacturers to accelerate their digital transformation so that they can get that flexibility and agility today. And I'd like to invite Tony to join me on stage. So welcome, Tony. Thank you.
Thanks, Grant. I'm excited to be here to talk about what we're doing together with Siemens and AWS. Obviously, AWS, the leader in cloud services, pioneer in cloud services, and then Siemens, as Grant said, just celebrated 175 years of being a company that helps our customers run their business. What you also may not know is Siemens is the #1 industrial software company in the world. This is the software that I provide through my team to be able to design, manufacture, create products, make products more sustainable. All of those solutions are part of what we bring. But we're also #1 in industrial automation. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we're working together with AWS to make that process of creating a digital enterprise, making that process easier for our customers. I start with Accelerator. What Accelerator is our set of software, our solutions, our domain knowledge, everything we do to help our customers create a digital enterprise. It's based on 3 pillars of what we do. First is comprehensive digital twin. First of all, the digital twin is not a new concept. It's been around for a long, long time. But what we're saying is it's got to be comprehensive because the value of the digital twin is how close the virtual world can be like the real world in what you have. And so we've worked very hard to make sure our digital twin can represent the design characteristics, the mechanical design, the software that goes into the product, electronics that goes into the product, whether it's electrical systems like wiring, it's the printed circuit board, it's the integrated circuits, all of the things that go into that product. It's the manufacturing engineering so I can plan out the plant. It's the operational aspects of that plant, the automation capabilities that we have. It's manufacturing execution software. All of those things you need to have because if you don't have that, your digital twin isn't comprehensive. How do you know you're making decisions in confidence? Because if you can't simulate this thing as best as possible, you're really going to struggle in creating that digital twin and be able to move fast. The second part of this is personalized and adaptable software. We believe in the future, most software applications are going to be personalized to you as an individual, not a persona, but to you as an individual. And I'll talk about some of the examples of that in a moment. And then finally, we've got to do it in an open ecosystem. No one can do all of this themselves. You've got to make sure you find ways to bring all of these pieces together. So we took Accelerator, and then we said, how do we make it more flexible, agile for our customers? So we lifted it, we put it on AWS. That allows us really to reach customers that maybe we couldn't have reached before because of the size of the customer. They didn't have their own IT organization. They couldn't implement some of the things we had. We can now reach them. But even large customers have come to us and said, can you take it over for us? We want to focus on the design, the manufacturing process. Can you run it for us in what we do? So we've leveraged this by putting it up on AWS and making it much more easy. Some examples of how we're making that flexible. Hybrid SaaS. In the first example, you see the design of this truck, designed in software like ours, that can simulate everything about that truck, the hoist, everything about how the truck is manufactured, all those types of things. In a hybrid SaaS model, oftentimes the tools that are the design part of the tools are on-prem. And so they want to have those capabilities. They want to have that software updated, continuously being updated. But they also want collaboration capabilities. But they don't necessarily have to have the design tools, the authoring tools sitting up in the cloud. It's sitting on-prem in my environment. But then you have other customers, like in the middle here, Saildrone. Saildrone's a startup company that says, look, I don't have a large IT organization. I don't have a large capital expense I can outlay for software. You've got to find a different way for me to do that. And so there we go with the full cloud SaaS offering. And then finally, we're also changing our consumption models. If you're doing that Saildrone, you want to know, is it going to sail? Is it going to float? What's going to happen with the resistance? How can I optimize this thing to make sure that it's moving easily through the water and through the air? I can simulate both at the same time. We have computational fluid dynamics tools that allow us to simulate all those things. That's very high compute. These guys don't have a large IT staff to go do that. And they're saying, look, give us the capability so that inside of my CAE tools that my team provides, I can easily push a button and go to AWS and leverage all their compute when I need it, pay for when I need it, and then come back. Very easy allowing them to make this process of creating your digital enterprise a more achievable event for a small company. We do this by leveraging Accelerator Cloud. Accelerator Cloud is our set of services that we provide that allows our customers to modify and or build their own applications or modify the applications that we have because we build all of our solutions based on a modular approach. One of the key parts of this is Mendix, our low-code software capability. Back to personalized applications. I have a 3D modeling capability that allows you to visualize 3D models. If someone in purchasing says, I just want to visualize something, and there's two attributes in my SAP ERP system that I want to pull out, maybe inventory or pricing information or whatever. You can do that as the person building this on Accelerator Cloud, not write any code, drag and drop those three services, design the UI how you want it, you push a button and you're running on your mobile device in minutes, to you as the way you want to work as an individual. The other part of this is our data hub strategy, because much of what you have to do here is be able to integrate the different systems to be able to bring all this together. So this is how we enable our customers to be able to use what we've got, to modify and adapt, and make sure we're in an agile way of deploying these solutions. I'll give you some examples of what we're talking about with some of our customers. Lockheed Martin Aeronautics. They came to us and they said, look, I've got thousands of users. They're sitting in lots of different systems, kind of silos in the organization. It's taking us 10 years to bring an aircraft to market from the start of the design. So they had to have a dramatic change in the way they design, the way they manufacture, and how they sustain aircraft. They looked at everything in the marketplace. They came back to us, and they said, we need to use Accelerator. Because we showed them we could take that design process from 10 years down to 3.5 years. And we did that by using model-based systems engineering and a lot of the tools that we've integrated together to solve their silo problems that they were having in the organization. But also, more interestingly, as we're through the whole process, he said it takes us 24 to 36 months to update our software today with the current vendor they've been using for many, many years. We showed them how we can do this in weeks and days by leveraging Accelerator, leveraging AWS to make this process much faster and much easier for them. CR Space. CR Space is a company that's really looking at the idea of commercial. They're the leading commercial space company that's really focused on transportation. Transportation of payloads in low Earth orbit. So they came to us the same thing. They said, look, my PLM systems don't talk to my MES systems. I got ERP systems. How do I integrate all these things together? Similar to what we talked about with Lockheed Aeronautics, same thing. We showed them how we could bring all this together and bring it forward. What we're helping them do with AWS is delivering payloads, large payloads, to the International Space Station, and then that same spacecraft is landing on commercial runways today that are existing without having to retrofit and change everything you have about bringing this thing back from space, back to the ground. Unlimited Tomorrow is an example of a small, medium-sized company. Again, somebody that we maybe wouldn't have been able to meet before. One of the challenges with with children when they have prosthetic is, one, they're very expensive. Two is they don't adapt and grow with the child. So you're constantly buying new ones to update. They're also not very realistic in the way they act and perform. And so Unlimited Tomorrow got together with us and looked at our Accelerator tool set and said, look, if we take your design capabilities, your simulation capabilities, and your additive manufacturing, they completely change the process. A fraction of the price of what they were doing before, and a quick way for children to be able to stay current with the prosthetics. So much so that we're working with Unlimited Tomorrow currently, where Siemens and Unlimited Tomorrow are delivering these to children in the Ukraine, helping out with the problems they're faced through the war that's there. Other areas where we work together. Application development, I already mentioned these ideas of these services or Accelerator Cloud. We create these microservices that can solve problems it's everything from IoT to IT-OT convergence to what we want to do with MES, all these types of services we build together, and we leverage Mendrix along with the services that come from Amazon to help us with this, with AWS. And AWS then has AWS IoT Twin Maker. What this is back to making sure that we have a comprehensive digital twin. How do I make it even more comprehensive that's beyond some of the things I've talked to you about? What if I want to interface to equipment sensors? I want video feeds that are coming in, different business applications. These are things we're doing together with our digital twin capability, aligned with AWS and what they do with AWS IoT Twin Maker. And then finally, as Grant talked about, most of our applications now are available on the AWS marketplace for our customers to be able to purchase easily off that site. So, many years ago, I met with a CIO of a large equipment manufacturer in the United States. And we were talking about PLM software, the software I talked about here so far. And he says, you know, Tony, what's really interesting about that is your software is really important to us, but it's not in the boardroom. ERP is in the boardroom because of finance, but your software has much more impact to the success of this company than anything we would do. with ERP. That was many years ago. Roll forward, we're in the boardroom now, particularly after COVID. Because what we saw with COVID is the companies that had a digital enterprise were able to move a lot faster, make decisions faster, and the ones that didn't really, really struggled. We could see that. And so what we're excited about is working with AWS is making this entire process much easier for our customers. Thank you so much.
Thank you again for joining us today. My name is Kathy Varma, and I lead the Industrial Strategy Solutions and Go-to-Market here at AWS. Thank you, Grant, for inspiring us with this vision for what the factory of future can look like, and how AWS is reinventing with our partners and our customers to help accelerate this vision. And thank you, Tony, for helping understand how Siemens is already, through this partnership with AWS, accelerating this vision and helping customers realize the vision today. Next up, continuing on our theme for reinvention this week, and towards the bold mission to revolutionize the Earth's ability to build connected, intelligent, and sustainable operations, products, and solutions with boundless velocity at scale, I am excited to welcome a great panel of customers on stage with us today. Please join me in welcoming Vincent Denis from Airbus, Head of IoT Platforms. Alice DiBiasiaso from Carrier, Vice President and General Manager for Refrigeration and Solutions. And Tony, back on stage, CEO of Digital Industry Software. Welcome back, Tony, and welcome Alice and Vincent. Tony, let's take a deep dive into what you were talking about earlier, which is accelerating transformation for industrial companies, specifically, understanding what the challenges are around OT and IT barriers and how AWS is helping you break those down.
Sure. I mean, some of that I spoke about, and that is, if you think about Accelerator Cloud and this idea of these set of services that we provide, frankly, those services, whether I'm solving IT, OT, IoT, MES, whatever it is, they really start to blur together.
Yeah.
And I think over the next several years, those services have to be flexible, adaptable, easy to adjust, and then how you bring all those pieces together is really important. And so that's what we provide with Siemens, and what AWS gives to us as a foundation to do that. But also, like I said, the digital twin builder, some of the services that are there that could help us. And it makes a big difference. I mean, we have companies today, for example, you think about IT, OT convergence, automotive companies doing line building, doing the robotics, everything about the assembly process on a line. We have shown that if we can do virtual commissioning, where I can plan and build the line, and then I can simulate the line with the PLC and actually generate the PLC code and verify that while you're doing it, we've taken weeks out of that process and turned it into days to do that for our customers. So you can do it really, really quickly and do it in a virtual world. And that's all what it's about is, again, back to my digital model, if I can really truly simulate and do it well, it makes a big difference,
Yeah. Thank you, Tony. Alice, before we dive into digital transformation that Carrier's on, tell us a little bit about your role and Carrier Digital Solutions.
So first off, thank you for having me. My name is Alice DiBiasio. I lead our software and digital solutions business for our Carrier Refrigeration business segment. And what we do, what we'll focus on, is really around cold chain operations, which I'll talk through in a minute.
Awesome, Alice. So Carrier's on its own journey for digital transformation, specifically in the area of cold chain operations, like you said. Tell us about what challenges you're solving for customers specifically, and how our partnership together is helping drive that.
Absolutely. So we always start with what we're passionate about and what our mission is. And we always start with a few stats. 475 million tons of food is wasted annually.
Yeah.
There are 10 billion people that we could feed, and yet 1/3 of all of the food is wasted. So when we talk about cold chain operations, it's really around the logistics network that provides refrigerated and safe transport, and as well as storage of food and other vital medicines, pharmaceuticals, right? So that's really at the forefront of what we're doing. What we offer as part of our portfolio is a whole host of different types of solutions. We have transport refrigeration assets. We have warehouse management refrigeration assets. We have cargo and IoT to actually track the transport of goods. And in a cold chain, you're talking about many different stakeholders. When you look at any supply chain, you're looking at many different stakeholders. And the number one problem is lack of interoperability, just the ability to share and access data.
Yeah.
So our Links platform is really aimed at doing just that, is connecting up the stakeholders and being able to provide a more intelligent cold chain, and be able to provide insights around where are the gaps, where are the issues, and allow our customers to actually target and solve for those specific issues.
Yeah, that's a great overview of the challenges the customers are facing in this area. So thanks for sharing that. Vincent, coming over to you. First, tell us a little bit about your role at Airbus.
Yes, and first, thanks for inviting me. So, Vincent Denis, head of IoT at Airbus. So, first, some word about Airbus. So, we are global leaders in aeronautics, space, and related services.
Yep.
Our workforce today is around 126,000 people. We have sold so far 21,000 aircraft to 400 customers in the world. So, head of IoT platform, so we design, implement, and operate Airbus IoT platform based on AWS technologies. So, it's deployed today in production in all our plants and factories in Europe, reaching out 3,500 end users, mainly for use cases related to traceability, tracking, metering, applied to, of course, logistics, manufacturing, but also quality and facility management.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Vincent. So I want to talk to you about a topic that I think is top of mind for everyone here and really any manufacturer that's out there across industries, supply chain. So in the aerospace world, supply chain is highly, highly complex, and these last few years have shown us all how that's even exacerbated further. Tell us a little bit more about Airbus's supply chain specifically, and why it's so critical for you to gain the visibility that you need.
Yeah, so indeed, our supply chain is very complex. Today, only for the commercial division, we have more than 15,000 suppliers over 100 countries.
Yeah.
10,000 out of those 15,000 suppliers are sub-tiers, and 2/3 of our issues in supply chains involve sub-tiers. So that's the first point. We have also many challenges with regulations, compliance, authorities. And so, in fact, we are very much exposed to uncertainties, much more unpredictable events, like, of course, the COVID, but shortages, logistics, quality issues. So it's really decisive in our business to ensure that we have the vertical visibility through the tier 1 and sub-tiers ecosystem to ensure we are able to, in the end, secure our deliveries, which is the most important for us.
Yeah. Well, Tony, I'll come back to you. So Alice talked about the cold chain operations, and Vincent talked about supply chain specifically for the aerospace industry. The common themes here are, connected and more intelligent and harnessing the power of data, really. Tell us a bit more about Siemens again, and how you're helping accelerate that transformation for industrials companies, and more in the context perhaps of smart manufacturing, which is the topic of the day for us today.
Yeah, I think harnessing data is necessary, but it's not sufficient, and that is, if you can't have a way to validate that data, how do you know you don't have bad correlations?
Yeah.
And you can see correlations of data today. If I give you enough data, I can make some silly correlations that look like they're tracking, right? But they don't make any sense. Well, how do you know that in a very complex product development process or manufacturing process you don't have a bad correlation?
Yeah.
You've got to be able to simulate it. You've got to be able to show and weed out what's really happening with this. And so again, what we do is try to make that process a lot easier for our customers to be able to simulate that and verified. And then with AWS, what it helps us do is, back to the example I gave, is scale and demand. If you need to be able to do that, use it when you need it and not have it there all the time, or not have to worry about asking your IT organization to go figure out how to get a bunch of hardware to figure this out. We made that really, really simple and easy for our customers to be able to do that. And so it's really about taking data and validating it and really showing what's really happening in your environment.
Yeah, that's right. Now, we talked a lot about the why and the how. At AWS, as much as we want to learn about, work backwards from our customers and understand the why and talk about and develop a strategy, it's really important that we start delivering business outcomes. So Alice, I'll come back to you. Tell us how AWS has helped you deliver business outcomes and achieve business outcomes for your customers and Carrier.
Yeah, I'm going to tee off of what Tony mentioned just around data. So we actually just recently launched a platform called our Lynx Fleet offering. And you can imagine with a number of transport refrigeration units that are going all across the globe, delivering products and goods that I had mentioned before, you're getting reams of data coming off of this equipment, just constantly streaming. And what we're focusing around are really what are the pain points that our customers are experiencing. As an example, any time that unit stops for any reason, you're talking about shelf life of that product that's being transported is getting impacted. So when we look at how do we look at asset uptime, how do we make sure that product or that unit that it's being transported on is optimally performing? We look at fuel usage. Sustainability is huge when we look at what's happening across the globe, and I know it's painful for all of us to kind of see what's happening in many of these global economies, but you're talking about energy efficiency is at the heightened levels, right? And now we're going into sort of winter months, right? So anytime we can preserve fuel usage, anytime we can look at how an asset is performing and reduce that load, so you can talk about extending its life, that's what we focus on, and those are the solutions we're bringing forth and been successful with our Lynx Fleet offerings.
Yeah, that's a great story, Alice. Vincent, same question to you in terms of realizing business value out of your collaboration with AWS, specifically around supply chain resiliency.
Yes, sure. So in fact, we deployed our IoT platform first for the landscape of supply chain. And we made it more resilient, being more agile and more flexible. And with the focus on two aspects, time to market and also TCO, total cost of ownership. So time to market, it was really important for us to ensure that with this investment, this platform, our businesses are able to onboard new solutions very quickly. And that's already a success because today we onboard new topics, new use cases in 3 months average. Yeah. And for the simplest one, it's even more less, it's 1 month. So that's a great achievement. And also regarding the cost of operations, our platform today is connecting around 30,000 devices and managing 25 million messages per month. Right. Messages is an information coming from a device. And the cost for that is below 0.4 cents of euro per messages, which is also a great success. So that's how, in fact, we made it flexible and agile to, in the end, be more resilient.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Vincent. So, Tony, I want to talk a little bit about the future now for Siemens. You are a 175-year-old company, been on this journey of reinvention for a long time. What does the future of Siemens look like?
Well, we became a part of Siemens 15 years ago with the software organizations that came together to form what we are instead of Siemens. And we've done, I guess just since I've been in the job, I think we've done over 30 acquisitions of some very small companies, some larger companies that we've done to build out that comprehensive digital twin. And so that will continue because as good as we are at it, you're never finished.
Right.
You've got to continually work that and make sure it's as close as you can be to the product or the manufacturing process that's going on. So we'll continue to do that. But also, there's something, again, is a unique advantage with Siemens in that we actually have factories that design and build products using our software, so we can actually validate our software and then bringing it together with automation. And so our CEO has made it clear that he wants Siemens to be more and more of a tech company going forward, and you do that by integrating software and taking advantage of our leadership positions in industrial software and automation to make this process really easy for our customers. It's tough to be open. You're going to give your customers choices and what they can do, but when we can put it all together, it can make a difference. And so I think you'll see a continuation of building out those digital twin models and simulation capabilities for our customers.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating journey to watch, and having the lines blur between what a traditional industrial manufacturing company does and how you've transformed yourself into a technology company. So as we are getting close to the last segment of this session, I would like to ask a similar question to all of you, really, for our audience to take one piece of advice. So we'll start with you, Alice. Tell us the one piece of advice for customers that are looking to really adopt and drive sustainability as a key driver and priority. What is the one thing you want them to take away today?
Sure. Sustainability is becoming probably one of the more critical KPI and metrics that are tracked in boardrooms all across the globe. And it starts with tracking and embedding it within your company culture. Everyone needs to live and breathe this and understand that everyone has influence on it. So what I would start with is tracking your baseline, is really just understanding what is your footprint that you're emitting out there, as well as your customers, how you can assist them. Carrier has our own ESG goals that we've established, which is we do want to reduce by 1 gigaton by 2030. And what we want to do is make sure we're being very transparent and reviewing those on a weekly, monthly, annual basis in terms of seeing performance. So it's got to start there, and it has to be ingrained in everything. So when you look at operations, just in terms of the plastics use that you have, right? Footprints of products that you're putting out there. Fuel and emission savings that you can have. That's where I would start. Set a goal out there, make sure it's a point of discussion within your organization, and recognize that each functional department plays a role in delivering on those goals.
Yeah, I mean, sustainability is another top of mind challenge and imperative that every organization out there is driving towards. And Carrier is really a poster child when it comes to driving both that within your culture and then delivering solutions to your customers. So thank you for sharing that, Alice. Vincent, supply chain transformation. What are the learnings that you'd like to share with our audience, and one piece of advice that they can get started with today?
Yeah. So I think I would focus on two aspects. First is trying to move from disconnected landscape from a global ecosystem, talking about supply chain. So as I said before, ensuring, yes, vertical visibility as well as data continuity. And that implies trust. So it's really important to have trust in this, bring trust in this ecosystem. I will also advise not to focus only on digital solution, but it's really a matter of impact on business, on processes. And so to onboard not only your inner business, but also the global supply chain ecosystem in the vision and in the strategy. That's really key to succeed.
Yeah, thank you, Vincent. And Tony, we'd like to wrap up with you. Industry 4.0 has been talked about for over a decade now. And yet it seems like industrial companies are just starting to embark on that journey. How do they get started and not worry about boiling the ocean, but really take small steps to get started?
Yeah, and I would say there's many companies that have absolutely benefited from Industry 4.0. It's just different levels of where you're at. I would say one is have that digital enterprise mindset. How do you build out a digital enterprise? Two is make sure your management is engaged in this to all levels. If I see a disconnect, usually I've done many, many implementations over the years. If I see a disconnect, it's usually because IT and the business are not aligned.
That's right.
And what's happening, and that's always the recipe for failure. Right? If you're aligned, you know what you're going after, what you're trying to achieve. And what I really like about working with AWS, particularly with Grant, is oftentimes we can get caught up in the tech and we start diving into the tech and then we just have to say stop.
Right.
Like what problem are we solving? What's the business return? These types of things. And I see that much more out of AWS in the last 18 months than maybe before, because we're all realizing you can't just throw tech at the problem. right? You've got to figure out what business problem you're solving and make sure you're close to it. As a management team, your management team's close, that they're close to what problems you're trying to solve, and you've got the alignment between the business and IT.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, Tony. I think there's a few themes we can leave our audience here with. One is around really harnessing, again, the power of data. We can't reinforce that enough. The second is driving that greater alignment between the business owners as well as the IT stakeholders within an organization, and then do that both top-down as well as bottoms-up. And then finally, probably the most importantly, driving that culture of innovation that we at Amazon and AWS are so passionate about to really help drive and accelerate the transformation journey that we're on. So, well, thank you for sharing these insights, and thank you all for joining the session today. Hope you found the session as productive and insightful as we hope to share around the topics of supply chain, smart manufacturing, sustainability operations. Now, as we wrap up, this was meant to just give you a sneak peek into how AWS continues to reinvent itself as we're bringing solutions together with our rich partner ecosystem to really help you accelerate on your own journey. We've got a few other sessions lined up, manufacturing 203, 204, 205, and 206, across 4 or 5 different customers. Airbus is highlighted in one of those as well, so please be sure to check those out as the week progresses. Thank you all for joining us.